Yeah, good morning, everybody. Good evening, everybody on the other side of the water. Um, wow, it's been an interesting day for the election cycle, or interesting week to say the least. But it never stops. It never stops. And I'm always learning, debating online in the chat, and it's actually really been interesting because I'm learning a lot more about what MAGA Republicans don't really know. And a lot of people have, uh, you know, kind of leaned or hinted at this being a factor between the election, the parties, and the things that excite individuals. But a lot of it, I believe it really comes down to information. How much information do you have? And when you have, you know, at the very worst case scenario, when you have politicians that really spread fear and hate and things like that, it makes it really difficult for the people that really do need it to focus on the information and the details, the policy information. And if you notice, Trump, he claims to have no policy right now, except drill baby drill, which we're already doing, and things like this. But one of the, he claims to not have a agenda like Project 2025. Like, he claims no association with that. But we know that is his agenda, because outside of that, he has expressed nothing else except drill, baby, drill, which is duh. This is not Saudi Arabia. The U.S. is not Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia, their main natural resource is oil. The U.S. has a lot of oil, but the U.S. has a lot of industry. You see, and it's technologically advanced too. So that means it's out there in the world. It does business. The U.S. industry does business with other parts of the world. Just as other parts of the world does business with the U.S. And most people like selling products in the U.S. because it's a big buying market. Once you get your product in there, you could sell it anywhere, and there's 350 million more uh, Americans you could sell the products to that are willing to pay a decent price for it. So yes, the U.S. does business, but oil is just one of the millions of things, one commodity out of loads of the commodities the U.S. has. The U.S. has a huge geography, and it has all types of terrain. So you could expect to have different natural resources available, and also it's a technological country. So, and it has been for some time. So you could expect it to be having a lot of different angles to do business with people for. But in any case, now that I said all that, back to what I'm learning about MAGA people. I'm learning that it's the information, and it's really sad too, because sometimes you could argue with people on the internet, or opposing views can joust or whatever, if you want to call it that, and go at it, debate. Sometimes people get annoyed or say rude things or whatever. But outside of that, it's it's really, I think, the thing that I'm starting to notice that's really sad in this is that a lot of MAGA voters do not know what the hell anybody's talking about. And that was made really clear with Trump and his. I'm going to go back to this. You know what? I'm going to go back to this one, but let me see.
Some
Right.
of your own
Right. This moment here.
supporters,
Look.
including Republicans on Capitol Hill, have labeled Vice President Kamala Harris, who is the first Black and Asian American woman to serve as vice president and be on a major party ticket, as a DEI hire. Is that acceptable language to you? And will you tell those Republicans and those supporters to stop it?
How do you define DEI? Go ahead. How do you define
diversity, equity,
Right.
and
You see
inclusion?
right there? You see right there? Now, rather than educate his audience, rather than take the opportunity to educate his audience to the subject of DEI. Trump doesn't do that. He doesn't take the opportunity to educate his audience to what DEI is, right? Diversity, equity, inclusion, right? He doesn't use this time to do that. He's in a perfect place to do it, by the way, because there's women there. It's three women that are the moderators and the panel is, they're the journalists. They're the ones selected to ask and organize and ask the questions, right? So Trump, when he's asked by the sister here a question, he does not follow suit. He does not say, "Oh, she asked me a question and I can spin this in a positive way. I could use this opportunity, even though she asked me about people using that and labeling Kamala Harris that. I don't want to talk about that. So what I'll do is I'll just tell them and share with my audience how much I know about diversity, equity, inclusion. I'll use that opportunity to broaden, to educate my audience. But Trump doesn't do that. Trump does the opposite. Look, check this out. So he goes all the way there to the meeting. He flies in, takes his security, takes all his staff, moves his big ass around, shows up there, and this is how he acts. This is how he behaves, and this is what he says.
Some of your own supporters, including Republicans on Capitol Hill, have labeled Vice President Kamala Harris, who is the first Black and Asian American woman to serve as vice president and be on a major party ticket, as a DEI hire. Is that acceptable language to you? And will you?
And here's how he's going to handle that question. Look,
tell those Republicans and those supporters to stop it.
How do you define DEI? Go ahead. How do you define
diversity, equity, inclusion?
Okay, yeah, go ahead. Is that what your definition?
That is.
Give me a definition then. Would you give me a definition?
DEI.
Give me a definition.
Sir, I'm asking you a question.
No, you have to define it. Define it for me if you.
You see, so he does the opposite. Rather than show the audience that's listening on TV, and rather than to educate them and his audience, MAGA folk, rather than use the opportunity to educate them to what DEI really is, rather than do that, he gets into an argument trying to control the conversation, trying to switch the roles to he's the journalist and I'm going to interview you, right? He gets belligerent. This is a woman that's misogynistic. He is being a misogynist purely right there in that moment. Take control. I'm doing the interview. I'm the one asking the questions. And we know it has nothing to do. It's not he may, to be honest with you, I don't see the difference because I've seen Trump treat white women horrible like this. Even worse. Watch, I'm going to show you. But in any case, rather than to educate his audience to what he knows about it and share with his audience something that they might want to know that he never tells people, and that is the biggest group. This is how stupid Donald Trump is, and this is how stupid their campaign is, the people that support all of this shit. But I don't want to call the supporters stupid because no, they're Americans, and I understand that we're all looking for something better. So I understand that, and I respect your right 100% to vote for whoever you want to vote for. I have no issue with that whatsoever. I have no issue with that. By the way, but if you do threaten me and threaten my life or begin to talk that way, then I'm going to take note of that. And every person should, right? But for me, I don't mind if people vote. But what I think is vote for Trump. But what I think is really weird is when they don't know nothing about what they're talking about. That's what I think is really, really weird, because this is how clever, again, how stupid Trump is, and the people that run his campaign, because they should have told him this. But obviously, Project 2025, it really becomes obvious to why they don't notice this. But they're stupid in how the Kamala Waltz campaign is clever, is they know one thing for sure. And that is if you're going to talk DEI, there's nothing wrong with that because the biggest group of DEI, if you want to call somebody DEI instead of Kamala Harris, is women, period. Women. And let me tell you why. And tell me if I'm wrong. When a woman has a child, she is the one who's most at risk of losing the job that she has, her career, right off the bat, because she has to carry a baby for 9 months. And hopefully, you live in a country where they appreciate women, especially if you want healthy children and you don't want to have to import other children just because you ain't taking care of the families and the children that you do have as citizens. But when a woman has a child, gets pregnant, she is the one likely to be more at risk of losing her job because in the United States of America, they're not inclusive in the work market like that, baby. A woman, just by her genetics, has to think about that. You see, a man doesn't. So that's the first reason why DEI first applies to women. It does. They're the biggest group of DEI, and you must respect that. Everybody else comes after that. And I'm not trying to say all issues are not, some issues are less important. That's not what I'm saying at all. There's some top 5 issues that are very, very, very important. All of them equally important. But I'm just talking about the mass numbers, the rationale. The biggest group of DEI are women, period. Also, they get paid less, right? They get paid less for the same job. Check the data. Also, there was a time in history where they couldn't own property and they couldn't vote. That's historic. That's the same thing with slavery of African Americans and Jim Crow. It's the same thing, except maybe all the women didn't get thrown on the plantation and beat, but they couldn't own property and they couldn't vote. They were basically property too, by default. Now, so this is where the Donald Trump and the MAGA, they're going to lose because women understand better, right, what DEI is all about. So they know when you're making fun at that, ho, 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 you just feeding right into the women. The women are going to get invigorated by that because you're directly throwing a shot at them, Donald Trump. That's your biggest target. Donald Trump's biggest target is he's a misogynist. That's the biggest one. A selfish, he treats women like dirt. Let's continue. I'll just show you the evidence. So just keep this in mind when they're having this DEI conversation. A lot of these MAGA people will start saying, it's about race, man. You just saying that because it's about race. It's racist. They always have a comment about that. It's racist to do DEI. DEI is racism. You're forcing a color on somebody instead of the person who knows the job best. That's not what DEI is. It's inclusion. That means understand what a person is for who they are and make the work environment inclusive. Don't just build it up, but based on what fits you best. Build it up what fits your employees best. And when you're really good at it, you can get into individual stuff. This employee likes this. Well, if he has that, he'll be more comfortable or she'll be more comfortable. But Mark doesn't want that or Cheryl doesn't want the same thing. It's something else that might inspire her a little bit differently. That's inclusion. So women are the biggest group of DEI. And they've been talking about that for a long time. Here's the example again before I show you some more Donald Trump misogyny. Here's the examples again. When women, just for them to have a family, they risk their job because what happens when a woman gets pregnant? Does her job keep her? How much time off does she have leave, the average woman, when she has a child? And if you can't say all women get the appropriate amount of time, and that's inclusive. Like I'm talking about, the importance of women. You can't talk about families if you're not talking about inclusion for women. You can't. You see what I mean? That's number one. And so there you have it. Number two, women get paid less for the same job. Check the stats. And then number three, historically, women weren't allowed to own property and they weren't allowed to vote. So that's a historic thing. You see what I mean? So there's repercussions for that last. They're still around, and you can see there's many. So on that note, I'm gonna play some more Donald Trump misogyny.
Defined its search.
Sure. She's shocked that I picked her.
No.
It's like in a state of shock.
I'm not thinking, Mr.
That's
President.
okay. I know you're not thinking. You never do.
I'm sorry?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
In a tweet,
You see that? Let me rewind it a little bit. Oh, 2 seconds. Hold on. Okay. So here we go. Let me slow that down because that went just to make sure everybody got a chance to hear that. Here we go.
defined its search.
Sure. She's shocked that I picked her.
No.
It's like in a state of shock.
I'm not thinking, Mr.
That's
President.
okay. I know you're not thinking. You never do.
I'm sorry?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
In a tweet this weekend, Mr. President,
You have to. Sure. She's shocked that I picked her.
No.
It's like in a state of shock.
I'm not thinking, Mr.
That's
President.
okay. I know you're not thinking. You never do.
I'm sorry?
No, go ahead.
That's pure misogyny right there. Do you understand that the president of the United States at that time insulted a woman in front of the world? In front of the world. Yes, he did. That right there, you cannot, you might want to be MAGA all you want, but this is MAGA right here. How he just talked to that woman, that was MAGA. How he talked to this woman before that, this was MAGA too.
Language to you, ticket as a DEI hire. Is that acceptable language to you? And will you tell those Republicans and those supporters to stop it?
How do you define DEI? Go ahead. How do you define?
Diversity, equity, inclusion.
Okay, yeah, go ahead. Is that what your definition?
That is.
Give me
literally
a
the
definition then.
words
Would you give me a definition of
DEI.
that? Give me a definition.
Sir, I'm asking you a question.
No,
a
you
very
have to
direct
define
question.
it. Define it for me if you.
I just defined it, sir.
Sure. She's shocked that I picked her.
No.
It's like in a state of shock.
I'm not thinking, Mr.
That's
President.
okay. I know you're not thinking. You never do.
I'm sorry?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
In a tweet this weekend, Mr. President, you said that it's incorrect to say you're limiting the scope of the FBI investigation.
What does that have to do with trade? I don't mind answering the question, but I'd like to do the trade.
It has to do with the
questions.
other headline in the news, which is the
I know,
Kavanaugh
but
nomination.
how about talking about trade and then we'll get to that. We'll do that a little bit later.
Do you think the trade,
Anybody have a trade?
do you
Go
think
ahead,
your trade
please.
deal will pass through Congress, sir?
I think so, but
You've called women you don't like fat pigs, dogs, slobs, and disgusting animals.
what I say is what I say. When you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything.
Whatever you want.
Grab them by the do anything.
Finding that he did not. They're saying no to rape, but yes to sexual assault. Where do you think the disconnect is there, Lisa?
There you go. So you got to understand, this man is anti-woman. First of all. So, all you MAGA women out there, all you MAGA women that are out there, promoting this misogynist, if you was a dude,
That's when I smack the shit out you. I smack the shit out. That's when
because that is foul. Any woman supporting Donald Trump, something is extremely wrong with you. Extremely. Extremely. Because he's an open misogynist. He's not even in the corner. He's not sneaking off somewhere. He's not saying, being nice about it, like trying, he's not even in the slightest bit confusing. Look, you dealing with a misogynist here.
For me, if you
I just defined it, sir.
Sure. She's shocked that I picked her.
No,
She's like in a state of shock.
I'm not thinking. Mr.
That's
President.
okay. I know you're not thinking. You never do.
I'm sorry?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
In a tweet this weekend, Mr. President, you said that it's
What, who the hell talk? Go ahead. No. Go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah, he said, what the heck? It's so horrible what he said. I could barely even remember it. Here.
She's shocked that I picked her.
no,
She's like in a state of shock.
I'm not thinking. Mr.
That's
President.
okay. I know you.
She said she's not thinking about that. She said, I'm not thinking about that. He said she's shocked that he picked her. And she said, I'm not thinking about that. And then he said, I know you're not thinking at all. That's what he said.
You're not thinking. You never do.
I'm sorry.
Like
I know you're not thinking. I know you're not thinking. You never do. Look, this is misogyny right out in your face. He's not even hiding it. He's telling you to your face. Trump is a pure misogynist. So what woman, and think about this, what woman would be voting for his ass? And then check this out, even worse, not even just voting for him, but he is against DEI. He thinks DEI is an insult. Because he thinks DEI is about race. No. First of all, the first thing when you hear DEI, the first thing that should ring in your brain is woman. It's woman inclusive. Female. Yes. That's the first one you better do not fact at all. And why? Because women, just to have a family, they have to risk their careers. Because how long are you going to give them off from work when they do get pregnant and do try to start a family? How much time you going to give them off work, boss? So this is the problem. DEI is about inclusion. And what that means is making safe spaces. Now, is a woman, is she to blame for being a woman? That her body has to carry that child for 9 months? Is she to be punished for that? Men don't have that problem when they start a family. Are you getting the point now? I hope so. You MAGA people, you really need to get this point, because I'm saying this out of love. But with your ignorance, you're easy to hate because of your MAGA ignorance. This man is a straight up misogynist. That means he hates women. That means he is anti-woman. And think about all the women in his life and tell me, is it a lie? Do you think those women like him? Anyway, because if they like him, listen to how he talks to women. Look at this.
She's shocked that I picked her.
no,
She's like in a state of shock.
I'm not thinking. Mr.
That's
President.
okay. I know you're not thinking. You never do.
I'm sorry?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
In a tweet this weekend, Mr. President, you said that it's incorrect to say you're limiting the scope of the FBI investigation.
What does that have to do with trade? I don't mind answering the question, but I'd like to do the trade.
It has to do with
questions.
the other headline in the news, which is the
I know,
Kavanaugh
but
nomination.
how about talking about trade, and then we'll get to that. We'll do that a little bit later.
Do you think the trade,
Anybody have a trade?
Do you
Go
think
ahead,
your trade
please.
deal will pass through Congress, sir?
Now, you heard that, right? See, he took
Including
over. She was the interviewer. She's getting interviewed. She's getting interviewed, and he is taking over the interview, taking control, because he's a misogynist. That's what misogynists do. You understand? That's what they do. When they're around women, they take over everything. You got it? That's what they do. So
some of your own
check it.
supporters, including Republicans on
Check it one more time.
Capitol Hill, have labeled Vice President Kamala Harris, who is the first Black and Asian American woman to serve as vice president and be on a major party ticket, as a DEI hire. Is that acceptable language to you? And will you tell those Republicans and those supporters to stop it?
How do you define DEI? Go ahead. How do you define?
Diversity, equity, inclusion.
Okay, yeah, go ahead. Is that what your definition?
That is.
Give me a
literally the
definition then.
words
Would you give me a definition of
DEI.
that? Give me a definition.
Sir, I'm asking you a question.
No,
a
you
very
have to
direct
define
question.
it. Define it for me if you.
I just defined it, sir.
Sure. She's shocked that I picked her.
No,
She's like in a state of shock.
I'm not thinking, Mr.
That's
President.
okay. I know you're not thinking. You never do.
I'm sorry?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
In a tweet this weekend, Mr. President, you said that it's incorrect to say you're limiting the scope of the FBI investigation.
What does that have to do with trade? I don't mind answering the question, but I'd like to do the trade.
It has to do with
questions.
the other headline in the news, which is the
I know,
Kavanaugh
but how about talking about trade, and then we'll get to that. We'll do that a little bit later.
Do you think the trade,
Anybody have a trade?
do you
Go
think
ahead.
your trade
please.
deal will pass through Congress, sir?
I think so, but
You've called women you don't like.
Isn't that the exact thing we saw both times? He came to and was had met the three Black lady journalists. How did he treat them? Then he went to the White House, even a White House correspondent, right? Who is not a Black woman at all. This has nothing to do with race here at this particular time. Look, and he does the exact same thing, takes over, decides that he's the journalist, decides that he's going to tell people what to do. You're going to do what he wants you to do. You're not going to ask him this question. You're going to ask him another question. And he's going to say it to your face in front of the world to see. That's
Find
misogyny.
it, sir.
sure. She's shocked that I picked her.
no,
She's like in a state of shock.
I'm not thinking, Mr.
That's
President.
okay. I know you're not thinking. You never do.
I'm sorry?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
In a tweet this weekend, Mr. President, you said that it's incorrect to say you're limiting the scope of the FBI investigation.
What does that have to do with trade? I don't mind answering the question, but I'd like to do the trade.
It has to do with the
questions.
other headline in the news, which is the
I know,
Kavanaugh
but
nomination.
how about talking about trade, and then we'll get to that. We'll do that a little bit later.
Do you think the trade,
Anybody have a trade?
do you
Go
think
ahead.
your trade
please.
deal will pass through Congress, sir?
I think so, but
You've called women you don't like fat pigs, dogs, slobs, and disgusting animals.
what I say is what I say. When you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything.
whatever you want.
Grab them by the do anything.
Finding that he did not. They're saying no to rape, but yes to sexual assault. Where do you
See, here's the thing. That's a good question. Things worth knowing. Do you think that he's going to really debate Kamala? Well, first of all, let's be honest. He has no debate skills. So whatever he's doing showing up has nothing to do with a debate. You right? He has zero debate skills. And it might behoove him to understand that the person who he is facing, the prosecutor, the ex-prosecutor, she's aware of all these things. And she doesn't like them. You see what I mean? So she may not be so nice about it. Because why should any woman treat a misogynist nice? Why? If I was Kamala Harris, I would take the gloves off. But of course she knows what she's doing. But I'm just saying I would, if I were her, just on the tip of him being a misogynist, I would just do your job, prosecute, get to it, chop it up, because he's meeting a woman. When he does debate her, he is going to meet a woman that is aware of this, that's aware of all this stuff.
President Kamala Harris, who is the first Black and Asian American woman to serve as vice president and be on a major party ticket as a DEI hire. Is that acceptable language to you? And will you tell those Republicans and those supporters to stop it?
How do you define DEI? Go ahead. How do you define
diversity, equity, inclusion?
Okay, yeah, go ahead. Is that what your definition?
That is.
Give me a definition then. Would you give me a definition?
DEI.
Of that? Give me a definition.
Sir, I'm asking you a question.
No, you have to define it. Define it for me if you.
I just defined it, sir.
Sure. She's shocked that I picked her.
No.
It's like in a state of shock.
I'm not thinking, Mr.
That's
President.
okay. I know you're not thinking. You never do.
I'm sorry?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
In a tweet this weekend, Mr. President, you said that it's incorrect to say you're limiting the scope of the FBI investigation.
What does that have to do with trade? I don't mind answering the question, but I'd like to do the trade.
It has to do with the other headline in the news, which is the
I know,
Kavanaugh
but
nomination.
how about talking about trade, and then we'll get to that. We'll do that a little bit later.
Do you think the trade,
Anybody have a trade?
do you
Go
think
ahead,
your trade
please.
deal will pass through Congress, sir?
I think so, but
You've called women you don't like fat pigs, dogs, slobs, and disgusting animals.
what I say is what I say. When you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything.
Whatever you want.
Grab them by the do anything.
Finding that he did not. They're saying no to rape, but yes to sexual assault. Where do you think the disconnect is there, Lisa?
I think the disconnect is that E. Jean Carroll, and Katie, I'm going to ask for your pardon here because I'm about to get graphic. E. Jean Carroll said that she couldn't really see whether Donald Trump was penetrating her with his genitalia. She knew that he had first inserted his fingers into her vagina. She felt him do that. And then she thought that she was penetrated by his penis, but she couldn't say for sure, in part because she couldn't see it. And so that uncertainty may have been part of what motivated the jury's verdict on the rape count. That notwithstanding, she was so unambiguous about the sexual abuse, and that plus the corroborating evidence that Ron pointed to, not only the fact that she called Lisa Birnbach from the sidewalk outside Bergdorf's, talked to Carol Martin 2 days later, but the testimony of Jessica Leeds and Natasha Stoynoff, whose own experiences with Donald Trump not only echoed E. Jean Carroll's, but were basically a come to life version of the Donald Trump playbook as enunciated in the Access Hollywood tape. I think that that's partially what helped get this jury over the line on the sexual abuse count.
Ghislaine Maxwell is in prison.
All right, so there you have it. I mean, we need not go into Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump because, it's already clear the man is basically a misogynist. Right. So you had all the examples that you need. So I don't see why any woman would be voting for him. And on top of that, the MAGA women, at least if the men don't do it, the MAGA women need to start thinking about DEI and whether it's a good idea for them because they might need some work inclusion, They might need some in their workplace, because that's what it's designed to do. Take up disparities and, biased practices, you could say, and there's plenty of them because after all, the data says, and people can just look this up for themselves. But the data does suggest that, men get paid more for the same job, typically in the U.S. So then you have other factors that are gender related. So that have a lot to do with how a woman engages the work market in general. Just the fact that a woman can have a child that, again, many times the choice between a child and a job, it is not an easy one to make. You see, so what's up with that? How does the system deal with the fact that women need time off for those things when they have a child? It needs to be for all women. It doesn't just need to be for some that have the money. You see, so DEI is not number one. The biggest group is women. There needs to be inclusion in the workplace. If not, not just them, but others too. But that's the biggest group. So on that note, I'm gonna close it down. Let me see this. Hold on. Let me see what things worth knowing. Little Dean. Anyway, all right. So look, the video is in the chat here. The full video is over there if you want to see it. Trumpty Dumpty. Um, it's called Trumpty Dumpty Had a Great Fall. You can check it out. And until later, peace. Remember, leave a comment in the comment section. Let me know what you think. Ask whatever questions you want to ask, and let's keep it going. I appreciate everybody for coming out. Peace.